In the beginning of the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, he says, thousands of years ago, the Toltec were known throughout southern Mexico as women and men of knowledge. Anthropologists have spoken of the Toltec as a nation or a race, but in fact, the Toltec were scientists and artists who formed a society to explore and conserve the spiritual knowledge and practices of the ancient ones. And you know what? That's exactly what we're doing in our study of the Four Agreements beginning on Monday, May 3rd. I hope you'll join me for this important spiritual teaching that is both simple and profound and will have lasting impacts on your life. I hope to see you there, and blessings on the journey, dear friend.
Supportek Staffing and Center for the Healing Arts present The Authentic Spiritual Journey, a weekly show featuring real and practical spiritual conversations from diverse perspectives here on the Experience of the Soul podcast channel. Today, episode 147, Receiving Guidance. And now your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
Hello and welcome to The Authentic Spiritual Journey. My name is Cynthia Alice Anderson and I am the host. I'm here in 818 Studios today with my producer.
Hello everybody, this is Dave Croft. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 147 of The Authentic Spiritual Journey. We are so happy to have you with us today.
Yeah, it's a great day. Happy Monday, everyone. We love to be the ones welcoming you into the week. We're here at mid-month. Oh my gosh, I can't believe how this year is flying by. We've had so many great guests on the show. So much is happening in life and in the world.
Yeah,
Are you feeling that, Dave?
Yeah,
Man.
and I keep doing last year this time I was doing this. So, like last month, it was like last year, this is when all my gigs evaporated, and this is when lockdown happened. And I think about last year in the middle of April. I mean, we were really in the thick of it and kind of coming to terms with how intense things are going to be and how long it's going to stretch out. You were one of the first to say, this isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And now, I'm vaccinated and my family is vaccinated. And of course we're recording this a little bit out, but yeah, I feel like that I really see the light at the end of the tunnel. If not, the light is here.
Yes, and there seems to be an attitude adjustment. Something's lifted for people. I don't want people to go out, too early, but I had to just travel, for a speaking engagement, and I was careful. Actually, I wore 2 masks. And and my friend taught me a great system for not using my mask, to carry them on a lanyard around my neck. I think we should do a promotion with Experience of the Soul podcast channel, lanyards and masks, because masks are here to stay. They're not going to go away. And now that people are more comfortable wearing them in public and stuff, I think it's here to stay. But like I say, I had to travel and speak, and I was just careful and washed my hands and, did all the things you have to do. But I was so happy to be with some friends at Unity of Nashville and make new acquaintances. And so, we're all doing the best we can and trying to go forward with life.
Yeah.
So we're all learning how to live.
Yeah. Shannon and I played a theater gig a few weeks ago, and it was the first gig back, like actually in a pit with our masks and everything. And
Right.
It really was the first time in a year that life felt like it resembled like normal. We actually went to a restaurant. Our first time in a restaurant with our masks and all of that. But I don't know, it didn't feel quite so overwhelming, like, wow, the world's never going to be the same. I mean, of course it's going to be the same. Of course we're going to go back to the movie theater. It's going to look different. I tell you what I'm looking forward to with masks. I'm looking forward to when people get sick, like whether it's just a flu or a cold or whatever, that they take it upon themselves to mask up. And I would love to see that kind of become the norm. I'm sick, and to protect my fellow human beings, I'm going to wear a mask. I like that.
I know. Like I've thought for years, like when I'm over there standing in a Walgreens, waiting for medicine or whatever, which if anybody that knows me knows I rarely take medicine, but just the thought of it, if I have to go get something and I'm standing there and I'm sick and people are coughing everywhere waiting on their medicine, it's kind of like everyone is going to get this. So I like all the new systems. I like the systems of I actually think in a many way customers are served better now than they ever have been because businesses had to change to suit the customer. So I like a lot of those things as well. So I think even though there were a lot of tough times in COVID, certainly, I mean, my own mother passed. You had a passing in your family. There was so much death and loss. But in any situation, there's also blessing. And so I think there was a lot of blessings of this time. I had recently re-listened to MC Yogi's interview, and he talked about he had a intuition that he was going to take a year off, and he was like, "This was my year," and the non-resistance to it, did bring a lot of gifts as well. So anyway, friends, we're glad you're in this with us, and just know, we're human beings walking through life, and this is called authentic spiritual journey, not perfect journey. I'm your guru, and this is authentic spiritual journey. And both Dave and myself, mostly me, but both Dave and myself, are get to share our journey, and we lift you up on it, and we're glad when we hear your stories because it helps us make sure that the stuff we're bringing to you is supporting you, and uplifting your life. So today, let's give him the title of today's show, Dave.
The title for episode 147 is Receiving Guidance. Receiving Guidance.
Yes. This is a great show and a great topic. And anybody who's heard me long or is familiar with my work has heard me say, I really went in to seek guidance, or my guidance for this was. And I was recently in a situation where I was asked about my journey. And I was thinking back to when did I start this of what I call following my guidance or listening to my internal guidance. And it actually started when I was seeking out a college. So I grew up, in Georgia, and I grew up around a lot of religion. I wouldn't say, though, that I grew up around what I would call spirituality. Like my mom's faith was super strong and really impacted me. And then my dad, interestingly, even though he was had a 7th grade education, he was the first one to teach me about reincarnation. And I remember in high school, I had this opportunity to go to Seattle with a friend. And I was really guided at that time. I thought, I know I'm only in 10th grade, but I know I really want to go to college. And so I'm going to be in a place I've never been. Maybe I should go look at colleges. So I went to my guidance counselor at the school that I attended, and I said, "Are there any good colleges in Washington?" I mean, I didn't know anything. And she listed out the colleges or whatever. And then as I went with my friend to Seattle, her mother had taken classes at this college that I was on my list. She said, "Why don't we go there first?" I said, "Great idea." So anyway, I walked onto the campus and I said, I don't know how to say this, but I'm coming here. I just had this knowing. Well, then after I got home from the trip, I decided to start applying, even though it was, in the next year, I needed to start applying. Then I was applying for grants and all that kind of stuff that you do, applying for scholarships and all of that. Well, I said to my dad, "Dad, I said, this is really scary to go away to college." And I said, "I'm just not sure if it's mine to do." He said to me, "Well, I think you know." That's simple. "Well, I think you know." He said, "Honey, you know just what's yours to do." And then he said, "Just ask God." So simple. So simple. My dad, who, said 3 spiritual things my whole lifetime, even though he had a lot of wisdom. I mean, he was never talking about, he had a real private faith. He had beliefs that maybe didn't always intersect with the church, but he went to church or whatever, but he just was not the type to sit around like I am and talk about spiritual things. That was just not what he did. But in that moment, he said, "So I'm saying all this to say that, I started this practice very, very young. And as I've taught people over the years, I know we've all had times like where we go, oh, yes, I know I'm supposed to do that, or I feel this is the right thing. And so when we have those feelings or we have those knowings, and by the way, I think there's 3 basic types. There's knowers, feelers, and seers. I've learned there's knowers, feelers, and seers. And there's going to be somebody out there going, there's also clairaudience. Yes, there is. Some people hear. It's a little bit more rare, but some people do hear. So I believe that we all have the ability to know what's ours to do, when, and how to do it. I believe that. But what I also know is that most of us have not spent the time getting to know the various aspects of the voices within. And so a lot of times we confuse the egoic voice with the voice of spirit. And you might say, are they different? Yes, they are different. They are different. And so I gave you that example of my college because it helped that I had a parent who was saying, you know what to do. Like, it gave me faith in myself that as I had this pull, this draw to this particular college, and actually it was a particular teacher, that I had this pull to there, he saw something that maybe I didn't even see yet, but he saw it in, like, he knew enough to say, I see her getting something, which really helped because then as I grew and as I developed, when I had this draw towards something or this sense that something was mine to do, I could more easily trust it. Does that make sense what I'm saying, Dave?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And so I think it's really important, though, to know that one does not just like have an idea and then jump a new direction. And I think that's what a lot of people do. They just have this fleeting idea and change all of life on a dime. And that's not what I'm talking about when I'm talking about receiving guidance. When I say receiving guidance, it is a knowing, it is a seeing, it is a feeling, and it's often affirmed by something happening outside of us, by a conversation we have, by um, a sign we see, by that there are other things that we're also looking at in the outer as signs for what this inner guidance might be. And what I've learned is that voice that's speaking is the voice of the soul. It's the voice of the intuitive self. It is the voice of intuition, right? And so it's like your intuition is like the intellect of the soul. This intuition knows, what to do and can see far off into the distance in a way that your limited mind cannot see. And so I think it's so interesting that here I was from Red Oak, Georgia. Only one sibling had even started college, and he went all of 2 hours away to Alabama. It was the furthest anyone had been, that somehow in my mind, Seattle was my place to be. Like, there was nothing in the outer world that made sense about that, but I had this draw. Well, then, so I want to go back to that story because first I had the desire, right? Then I went and I felt, yes, this is my place. I met my teacher. That's my teacher. And then once I applied, I had other signs. I got scholarship. I got grants. I got a job. And the longer I was there, the more scholarship and work and grants, that I got. And so when I got out of college, I had so little debt. I paid it off in just like 2 or 3 years. And most people leaving that school had 80,000 in debt, and I had 7,000.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
usually
that's
about
me.
80,000. That's average.
Yep.
And I got out with 7,000 in debt because of the scholarships and the I had a lot of support from the school, and I won, different endowments and things that were over the three: theater, art, and music. And so I had a lot of support for being there. So in other words, first there was this kind of inkling that was way back in my mind. I was like, I wonder if I should check something out. It's I have a friend that calls those angel whispers. It's like there's something going, what is that about? And it kind of causes us to move forward. So, but I think had I gone to the campus, for instance, and not liked it, well, that would have been a very different story. And as I went to Seattle, it was so funny because there was another school nearby called Pacific Lutheran, and I looked at it on the page, and I started to drive by the campus. I said, "It's not it. I'm not going. I don't need to go. The decision is made." But once I went home to Georgia, it was so scary to think that I might go that far, for college. Nobody had.
It's hard to get much further away than that.
Yes. Yes. So friends, hear that. It wasn't one thing, it was many things. It was many things. And so when we talk about, receiving guidance, it's something we want to nurture and learn over time. So I want you to think about, though, right now, if there's been a time in your life when you really knew something was yours to do and you moved forward and did it, what that felt like. Because I think sometimes we minimize our ability to move our lives forward. And it's mostly because I think we lose contact with the soul. We start getting so anchored in the mind, and we get stuck and we get almost diluted by what the world says we need, that we forget we're here for a purpose. And when we're listening to our internal guidance, that language of the soul, that intuition, and that will pull us forward in ways that sometimes the ego and mind doesn't understand. So we're going to talk more about that as we come back right after these messages.
We'll return to the program in just a few moments, but first, we wanted to give a special word of thanks to our podcast partners, Supportek Staffing. Supportek Staffing is an innovative staffing agency built on the principle of caring about employers and employees as they navigate these new workforce and workplace challenges. If you're an employer, they want to be your human resource partner and help with the changes needed during the pandemic. If you're a candidate, they want to become your lifelong career agent to help you grow into your fullest potential. Supportek prioritizes support over volume, integrity over profits, and will treat your business and your career as if it was their own. You can learn more at supportekstaffing.com. That's SUPPORTEK staffing.com. And finally, we want to give a special word of thanks to Center for the Healing Arts. Center for the Healing Arts is one of the first dedicated group practices devoted to challenging, supportive, and nurturing therapy. Their dedicated therapists have a wide range of expertise, including relationship and couples therapy, individual therapy, addictions, neurofeedback, play therapy for children, adolescents, and families, and therapy for blended family issues. They also regularly offer day-long intensive workshops for relationships, addiction recovery, adult children of alcoholics, and healing trauma in the LGBTQ+ community. For more information, head over to centerforthehealingarts.com or call 407-657-8555, extension 1. We now return you to this week's episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey with your host, Reverend Cynthia Alice Anderson.
And welcome back. We're glad you're with us, friends. And I hope on the break you were thinking about, when have I known? When have I felt? When have I seen, what was mine to do? It's like you feel it in a different way in the inner life. And I think, it's taken me a while in my teachings to really get that what we're doing is creating this new awareness of our interiority. We are becoming acquainted with our soul in a new way. Instead of just being stuck in the mind, instead of being stuck in what everybody thinks, and even what I think, I have a lot of thoughts, but I notice most of those thoughts are based in judgment, unforgiveness, and, wanting to be right. and the soul just bypasses all of that. So all the teachings, we love to say, that our teachings are to help you grow, prosper, and evolve. That's true. And the way we do that, though, is by a serious effort at listening and creating this meaningful interior life. And then that it's like we're building this new structure within ourselves, so that when life happens, we're not like thrown off center so quickly, because we have this internal energy, this internal spaciousness, this internal knowing and energy that we call upon, if life happens. And so when I talk about things like receiving guidance, it's not that I think you're not doing it. It's like I want to support what it is you're trying to do. I know our listeners are seeking to live a spiritual life, a life that makes a difference, a life that wants to change the world for the better. That you want to bring more light, more love, more energy, more goodness, more faith, more joy, into the world. And so how do you do that? Well, one of the ways you do that is you receive guidance from the higher energies. You tap in to the level of the soul where virtually everything is known, friends. We cannot think our way out of things. All of the best minds that the world has ever seen have basically said, I want to know the mind of God. That's one of Einstein's most famous quotes. I want to know the mind of God. The rest is just details. He also said we cannot solve a problem on the same level that the problem was created. The scripture says, renew your mind. This means that there must be something more than the daily chatter of our thoughts. And friends, usually these thoughts are taking us off where we need to be. So it does require effort on a daily basis to tap into our soul, to remember that we have the capacity to receive spiritual guidance from within. Now, I will tell you that over the years, I've seen people really misuse this. They'll say, my guidance for you is, and every time I hear that, I laugh and go, oh no, oh no, you don't get to have your guidance for me. You can have your guidance for you, but not your guidance for
God
me.
told me about
Um,
you, something about you. Yeah, that always feels weird.
yes, God told me, yes. Um, and I think it is such a day by day process to learn to listen to this spiritual voice within. And I want to give you some clues on how to do it. The number one question I have received over the years when I speak of the soul is, how do I know the difference between ego and soul? All right, so here are a few. One is it good for me? Okay, so if we feel this sense, this energy pulling us a direction, we want to ask, is it good for me? I did not say, do you like it? Or do I like it? So that the ego, even when I say, is it good for me? We all go, oh, great. That means I get anything I want whenever I want it. Well, no, because an alcoholic would say, I want a drink. And that's not good for you.
Yeah.
A food addict would say, I don't want one cookie, I want a whole box. Now, that's not good for you, but that's liking it. So, is it good for me? That's one of the ways you know. The other way that I've learned is that the ego goes on the attack. The ego bombards me with thoughts, and it is a convincing voice, and I do not like that voice because it pushes me in directions I know are not of my highest good. See how everything comes back to number one? Is it good for me? So the ego will go, it doesn't really matter. What do you think? Oh, you could do it that way. Nobody will notice. These are kind of things that, oh, you don't really want to do that. even though you're feeling this internal calling, right? The ego starts to argue. Well, if I were to say it really clearly, I would say ego argues, spirit knows.
Hmm.
The scriptures say it comes in a still small voice. And I would say for me, that's pretty accurate. There's not a lot of conversation internally. It's both usually felt and like sense like, oh, this is a yes for me. This is a yes. It's like if I have to talk myself into it, it's ego. But spirit knows. There is this overwhelming sense, this yes from the universe. Spirit, should I do a podcast? Yes. Yes. Something I'm discovering about that, friends, I'll just share a little part of my process, which is, I've been recording so much, and Dave's taught me how to do some recordings at home, and I've spent several hours just recording, months of material, and I kinda opened a floodgate or something. There's a lot I wanna say. It's going out on the channel. You're gonna hear it. I'm, talking with other people about other shows and putting this show on other platforms, and it's already on Google, it's on Stitcher, it's on, iTunes, it's on Spotify, but, Unity Online Radio is now carrying this show. And so something's happening in me. It's like, once I've given myself permission to just be in this yes fully, I'm not pulled here, I'm not pulled there. So what is spirit asking? It's like record, record, record. It almost feels like if this I have a former mentor that recorded. She was in a dying process. She was at the end of her life, and some of the greatest recordings she recorded on dialysis. And when the pandemic started, I recorded this short series called Spiritual Prosperity. I said, if this were the last thing I recorded, these are the 7 messages I'd want to get out. And so I'm saying all this is I'm in an internal dialogue with all that is. It is my soul, and it is bigger than my soul. It is asking the universe, working with the universe on a daily basis, what is mine to do? What is mine to say? What is mine to be? And as I get this feeling, as I get this yes, I do it. And I'm recording, 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 recording. I'm filling up Dave's inbox with here's another 10, here's another 20, here's another 40 shows, these things that I recorded. Literally. And it wasn't hard, it was a joy. And so that's another way we check out. So one is it good for me? Two, we want to just see, are we being like forced into it? Are we argued into it by our ego, or do we just know? Is there just sometimes it almost feels like an overwhelming sense of like calm comes over us. It's like, yes. And the other way is, does it bring us joy as we move this direction? So something can bring us joy and at the same time be uncomfortable. I just was talking with a group. I can't remember where it was now because I've been doing a lot of speaking and recording. And somebody asked me the question, well, how do you know you're growing? I said, well, you're uncomfortable. And they were like, oh.
Yep.
I said, and if you're not uncomfortable on a pretty regular basis, you're going to sleep. You're not living. So we don't want to just go to change when that's the last option. We want to initiate change as a soul in evolution. We want to see, oh, yes, I want to move forward on my journey. Oh, yes, I want to grow. Oh, yes, I want to expand. So that's another thing to notice. Is this internal guidance causing me joy? And is it also causing me to be a little uncomfortable? That's a good thing.
Yeah, and that's, as a creative person, if As a drummer, if I'm not pushing myself, then I'm playing it way too safe, right? If I'm not getting nervous either
Absolutely.
before a performance or whatever, then that means I'm not pushing myself as a composer. If I'm not taking risks, and if I don't get the little fluttery kind of, the butterflies, then that means I'm probably just coasting. And while that might work for a while, ultimately that's going to lead you into a cul-de-sac.
Yes. Yes, exactly. We have to be growing. We have to be like moving forward. And since I've especially in the last couple years, I've worked more with my plants and with my roses at home, and I really enjoy seeing things grow. And I was watching something over the last few months start to grow in my yard, and I was thinking of the effort it must take from a seed to breaking ground. Like a lot has to happen between that seed and something coming through the dirt, right? And so our souls right now are in a process of seeking to grow. And we read books, we go to workshops, and bottom line is, friends, it is our daily spiritual practice that matters the most. It's like spiritual community is awesome. It's where we celebrate the work we've done 6 days of the week. Being in a class is wonderful because we get with other like-minded individuals. But if all you're doing is the class or all you're doing is the spiritual community, you're never going to really grow at the level that spirit intends, because we're here as souls on a spiritual journey. It's like we think it's about making money and having a house and having a car and paying taxes and dying, but the truth is we're here to grow our souls. So the daily work of listening, of going within, of checking it out, of discernment is what we're here to do. So I want you to feel. My hope is that as you hear what I'm saying today, you will be empowered. You'll be empowered to know, even though spiritual teachers are wonderful supports for your life, it's yours to do to know God. It's yours to do to know your soul. It's yours to do to be quiet and just listen to the voice of spirit within you. I was thinking back to some of the things MC Yogi said on our interview about a little over a month ago, and I thought it was great how he just said, when you just spend outside, time in nature and around beautiful things, you tend to have a more beautiful perspective. It's so simple. And if you're having a hard time hearing the voice of soul within you, then I would really suggest some time outside, sitting at the base of a tree, just getting in nature and getting in the scriptures, it's called going apart for a while. And just making some space for you in your process. Build a fire, do something that's really different from your everyday of being on the computer and being plugged in or talking to family. Like, just give yourself time and space. And as you start to listen more intently to the voice within you, you're going to find you have tremendous support from the universe. Friends, you do not know how much you are loved and supported by all that is. So my hope, my prayer is that you'll continue to listen within. You'll say, well, is it good for me? Are you getting this internal yes? Are you, quiet enough to hear that still small voice? And then are you discerning as you receive these messages, what is yours to do? I want you to remember that you are so loved and so supported by the universe, and that your own soul is here to bless you, to serve you, and move you forward on the journey. We wholeheartedly believe you are here to grow, to prosper, and evolve. And our prayer for you is that as you begin to receive guidance, you will move into areas that even a few months ago and a couple years ago, you never would have even dreamed were possible. So, friend, our prayers are with you. We lift you up daily. We are so grateful for your listenership, for your support. So many of you have reached out financially and given gifts. We thank you for this because it ensures we can continue to bring you these messages of hope, of love and encouragement. And just know we bless you on the journey, dear friend.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Authentic Spiritual Journey presented by Supportek Staffing and Center for the Healing Arts. This channel is also made possible because of listeners just like you. If you would like to support the channel with your tax-deductible contribution on an ongoing basis or through a one-time gift, head over to experienceofthesoul.com/support. The Authentic Spiritual Journey is copyright 2021 Cynthia Alice Anderson, all rights reserved. Our theme music is composed by Dave Croft and used with permission from RR Hot Publishing. The Experience of the Soul podcast channel is a production of 818 Studios.